Hi everybody. So we are getting into our second short story, and this is about the lottery. But first, let's kind of go over the Bellwork question from today. Possibly. Okay, here we go. Okay, so in your Bellwork, I asked you, is it okay to sacrifice the few for the many, or one person for everyone else? And the reason I asked you this question not only was to kind of figure out where your morals lie, but also to make a connection to the short story that we're going to be reading, because there is actual human sacrifice in the story that we're going to be talking about for the next week or so. So just to keep that in mind, um, and the story we're reading is called The Lottery, and it is by Shirley Jackson. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first of all, I want to talk to you about the history of sacrifice and kind of why it was practiced. I don't think it is currently practiced anywhere else in the world, at least I certainly hope not. At least as far as human sacrifice goes, and I certainly wouldn't want any animal sacrifice either. Believe it or not, I'm a vegetarian, so definitely don't want animal sacrifice either. But sacrifice is just the offering of a life in exchange for something in an act of worship or tradition. So basically, that just means whether that's a human life, an animal life, whatever. Maybe sometimes it's even money offerings. It really just depends on the culture, but in this instance, we're talking about actual like life sacrifice in exchange for something. So usually it's a sacrifice to a god or a deity or gods if they are polytheistic. In exchange for maybe good weather or crops, or if maybe the survival of the whole village. Whatever that particular culture believes is what the sacrifice is for. And usually it's in tradition, in an act of worship. So we see sacrifice in a lot of cultures across the world. So firstly, we can, for people who are religious or have studied the Bible, we have Jesus' sacrifice for the world, right? God gave his son and sacrificed his son for the world's sins, right? At least that's what it says in the Bible. So that's an instance of sacrifice, especially in like Western culture, so our culture. Have seen sacrifice in ancient China. And I'm sure eventually, if you haven't already, you'll probably talk about human sacrifice in the Aztec and Mayan empires. These are ancient Native American tribes. I think they're more central to Central America and Mexico, these two, but they definitely practiced human sacrifice to the gods for whatever reason, whether that be good crops, you know, protection in a war that they're fighting with other tribes, whatever it is. We also see it in ancient Egypt and in Greece too. So Greek mythology, a lot of people will have animal sacrifices to the gods to appease them. And then there have been studies that show that maybe possibly human sacrifices have been done as well. And if you can think of any more, I'm sure there's more out there. I just wanted you to get an idea of like human sacrifice and the offering of a life to a god is not anything new, okay? So let's move on. So some themes that we're going to be studying in the lottery include the dangers of blindly following tradition, the importance of questioning conformity, gender roles in family dynamics, and sacrificing the few for the many, like we just talked about. So, the first one is pretty self-explanatory, right? And honestly, we could even apply this first one and the second one to maybe some stuff that's happening in our world right now, right? So, is it dangerous to blindly follow people and not question anything, right? Or to at least look into why we follow those traditions to begin with, right? Is there any corruption there? Is there something bad that we should be avoiding? So we're going to study that one. And then the importance of questioning conformity, right? So questioning things that everybody else does. Well, why do we do this? Why do we have to follow these rules? Why is this happening, right? It's important to question those things. Otherwise, it could lead into blindly following something that could be bad, right? And then gender roles and family dynamics, we're going to see, like how men behave in this community, how women are to behave in this community, how boys and girls act in this community, and so on, right? And also, family dynamics just means like what a family unit looks like in this community according to the gender roles. And this will make more sense when we start reading. And then again, sacrificing the few for the many. So, what we just talked about before. So some symbolism that goes along with this, and a lot of these refer back to the themes that we just discussed. So we're going to see this black box in our story, and this symbolizes tradition and blind conformity. Let me preface, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Preface what symbolism means if you don't remember, just a refresher. So symbolism just means like you take an average everyday object and it is used to symbolize, or kind of it's used to represent something else. So for example, the dove, right? That's a symbol of hope and peace. The heart is a symbol for love. The bald eagle is the symbol for freedom in America. What else? There are so many different symbols out there that I'm overwhelmed with giving you more examples, right? But that's what a symbol is, an everyday object that represents something totally different. So the black box that I just talked about, that's going to symbolize tradition and blind conformity in our community that we're going to read about. The stones, that is a representation or a symbolism for violence, and we're going to see why when we start reading. And then finally, the marked slip of paper is a symbol for sacrifice, and we'll see what that means here soon too when we start reading. And of course, as always, I have to give you guys a vocab list. These are all of the words that I think would be really challenging for you. So we're going to read through these really quick, and I will give you the directions down here at the bottom, so you know exactly what to expect as far as vocab goes. But honestly, folks, it's the same thing as last time. So you're going to define and use in a sentence each of these words. We have humorless, interminably, ritual, petulant, disengage, reprimand, paraphernalia, perfunctory, profusely, jovial, and boisterous. Okay, now these words are a little harder than what they were in our last short story, and obviously there's more of them. So these will be due on Friday. I will check these on Friday. And again, I will post the quote-unquote correct definitions that I want you to have in reference to how they're used in the story. So just so you can check your work again like we did last time. And again, you need to give the definition and use them in a sentence, okay? I think that's all I have for you guys as far as our introduction to this short story. Please make sure you check in on Zoom later, and if you have any questions or concerns, as always, please email me. Thank you, everybody.